This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Alex from Eco Instant. He's a Colombian farmland investor. And I heard about this guy on Twitter. He started replying to some of the tweets, and he said, yeah, I have 97 acres in Colombia. I got a whole team. We're doing farm stuff. And I was like, what? That sounds crazy. I got to hear about this. So we got Alex on the podcast to hear about his story of coming to Colombia in 2009 with 80 bucks in his pocket, and now he's got 97 acres. So Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Vance. It's really great to be here, and it's been really great interacting with you guys on Twitter. I personally think that if more people figure out what we already know, there's going to start to be an exodus from high cost living places like California, but not limited to California. And they're going to be coming here to Latin America. And, time will tell how that's going to go, but we've done it already. And so we just want to share with everybody. That's really what it's about on social media. Like, hey, there's some cool stuff happening. Pay attention because people in the U.S. are really suffering right now. Europe, Canada, the high cost of living is ridiculous. I can't even believe it. It was bad when I left, and it has gotten insane. So yeah, man. I just want everybody listening to this to open your mind a little bit because the the geo maxing, the geo arbitrage is real, and you can have a really different style of life by coming down to Latin America.
Thank you for that. So you think we're onto something here at My Latin Life?
Definitely on to what I think could be the next big trend. When I was a kid, people said vote with your feet. And I think they
Mm.
meant like, I'm from Wisconsin. So people meant like, I'm going to go to Iowa or something. But when I figured that out, like, I'm going to vote with my feet, like, and the cost of living in Colombia, I've seen some of the charts you've been posting, is one of the lowest in the entire Americas, North and South America, and it's really a great quality of life with a really uh, minimal pension or minimal income, whether you're a freelancer or you got like a disability check. I've been trying to get some of my friends and people I work with to just move down here and be able to focus on what you really want to do instead of not being able to focus on anything because you have to make 5,000, 6,000, $7,000 a month just to make the ends meet.
Mm. And in your neck of the woods, which is the department of Tolima, Colombia, how much you think someone needs to live well per month, cost of
It
living?
it's crazy, I'm freelance, so I do different things, and I can make it with $500 a month, or even maybe a little less. The minimum wage here is like 275, and so it depends how integrated you get. A lot of people talk about Medellin, and it is obviously more expensive in the cities. We're in the northern part of Tolima. We're in El Campo, and it's just one thing I gotta mention is the food. So we live where the food is grown. So the food is all high quality. The cows eat grass, and five, six, $700 a month, you're starting to like live like a king. You could do whatever you want. And usually, what I find is what people want is not to play video games in their room. What they want to do is start a business, invest in something, change the world, live out their mission that they've always had. And so, to me, it's really freeing. The lowering of the cost of living opens you up to a freedom that can
Hmm.
allow you to take risks, can allow you to start a new business, figure out what you want to do with your life if you haven't figured it out yet. Um, so yeah, I would say here in Tolima, it's even cheaper than Medellin.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dude, you came out firing at the start of this episode. This is great. You got the pitch down better than I do.
I've been working on it. I've been blogging for 6 years now, and I just started Twitter again. I said, okay, I think I'm ready. I've done some things because when we started with the farmland, we were still figuring it out. What do you do with the farmland? Maybe I could talk a little bit about that. So one of the
Hell
big
yeah,
things
dude.
with
I want to get way into detail about that. So anyone listening to this podcast, if you are a man, you probably want to own a farm, right? So we are going to get into that in painful amount of detail in this episode, just because selfishly it's something that I think about a lot and I have no idea what I'm doing. So we're going to use Alex as kind of our help here to figure out, to just mentally visualize what that would look like. Because again, when I saw on your Twitter, you're like, yeah, I got 100 acres. I got workers. I guess you probably do like fruit trees. I don't even know yet, but I'm like, that's insane. How, and so we got to hear the whole thing here.
Okay, yeah, and it is a great story, and it's been about 10 years since we bought the first farm, and we've learned a lot. And so there are obstacles, and the first thing is gringo pricing. So it's hard when you get started to figure out how to buy land and not get ripped off. There isn't a Zillow down here, right? You can't easily, you know, scrape APIs to figure out what is the price per hectare. You got to kind of get integrated into a community, speak Spanish, or have some really trustworthy people on your side. So I will say we overpaid for the first farm, not too much, still cheap in U.S. terms, but we did overpay, and we moved here, and it was monoculture coffee. And so we got into the coffee game. We're
That's
learning about
dope.
coffee, and coffee is a fun thing. It's gotten really popular. But one thing that I had always, I was into like sustainable development. And I thought, if people in the countryside are so poor, why aren't they doing something different? So I kind of wanted to come in and figure out how I could improve it, how I could just figure out what were the obstacles. And so that got me into this space where we would buy up some farm where there was no road access. And then we would hire like a machine, a bulldozer, a caterpillar. We'd fix up the road, and then we'd flip the farm. So we'd triple the price per acre just by
Purely by
fixing
having
up
a
a
road.
road. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I can do this because we identified accessibility as one of the big problems. So, like, this is great. I could do this. I made some friends with people with these machines, made some good businesses there. And so we started learning access to the market. And so, okay, so why aren't the farmers transforming their goods? And we helped a local business start up a coffee roaster, and now they're in our little town. There's 38 different brands of coffee, single origin coffees. Where when we started, there was maybe one.
So this first property that you bought, how is it measured? Is it per square meter or what is the metric?
Yeah, so down here they measure in hectares, which is 2.5 acres, and each hectare is 10,000 square meters. And it's interesting because in the mountains, you get a lot of steep slopes, and the square meters are measured by the satellite, like flat space. So
Hmm.
actually, steep slope farms are bigger geometrically than flat farms.
Damn, I didn't
So
know that.
yeah, it's you got to be a little careful. A lot of people will say their farm is, let's say they'll say it's 10 hectares, and you'll measure it and it'll be 6. And that's because they measured on an angle instead of from the satellite.
But it's got
So
to be satellite.
well, that's how, right. So a lot of times, when you come in, if you actually get out your GPS and you measure it, you can get some really good prices on these steep slope farms because you say, actually, here's the map. Your farm's only 6 hectares, and farms are generally negotiated by price per hectare.
Hmm.
So we've been able to do things like that. The EGAC, the Institute of Geological Studies, that's how they measure it, flat from the satellite. And so people know, but they'll often inflate not just the price, but also the size of their farms.
Hmm.
So that's another tricky point. All of this stuff we've learned over the course of 10 years, which is why I started setting up this fund where other people. I had some friends and some family members that said, well, we would like to do something like that, but you got to manage it for us because we don't know what we're doing. And I said, yeah, that's. I feel a little bit. I posted a link from Steve Irwin. He says, I love money. Money's great. You know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to buy a bunch of land, and that I feel like that too. I don't need a
I saw
Lamborghini.
that. I saw
Yeah,
that.
I just want to buy a bunch of land, and it's this is what I love to do. So it's fun.
And so, obviously the price has changed in the past 10 years, but roughly what kind of price per hectare are we looking at?
So around here, it's ranging from let's say 2,000 per hectare to 10,000 per hectare. I'm talking US dollars.
And that's now or
Um,
10 years ago?
that's right now.
Okay.
And that's going to depend on how close you are to road access, how close you are to a town. I prefer buying underpriced properties and making them more valuable. But sometimes, I have a project here, my main project. Sometimes to pick up a neighbor's property, it's worth a little more to me because it's right next to something I'm building.
Hmm.
Um, but generally, you have to be as patient as you can. The Latin American people, the Colombian, in my experience, can sense if you are eager. They're going to overcharge you. So you have to be. There was a property we bought just last year. I've been negotiating with the guy for 6 years. And finally, we came to an agreement. It took 6 years, but I got the piece I wanted. And so you have to kind of play their game, right? Not play our game. We're so and clock and punctuality oriented, and they're not at all. They're way different.
Hmm. And how do you find these deals?
Well, one advantage I have is that I've become integrated in my local community. So we've lived here for since 2012 in this town. So that's 11 years now. People know me. And at this point, a lot of times I become somewhat of a real estate agent, really locally. People will come and tell me about the farm they're trying to sell. People will ask me, "Do you know of any farms?" Right now, the big deal is people in the cities are trying to move, back to the pueblos. They don't want to be caught. Just even Colombians in Bogota or Colombians in Ibagué, they don't want to be caught in another pandemic in the city. And so I kind of identified these trends pre-pandemic. Colombia had become, I think it was 87 or 88% urbanized. It was
Hmm.
the most urbanized country in the world. And I said, this trend can only go so far. In 2014, I think they began the peace process, and I said, I really think I'm onto something here. I want to get ahead of this wave. People are going to eventually come back to the countryside. It's in their mythos, la finca, and so they think about it. They want that, or maybe they think they want it. But now, when people are coming back from the city, they don't want to walk 30 minutes to their farm. They don't. They want their car to
They need a
arrive right
road.
to their house. Right? They want a road, and so the farms that people are selling are not necessarily the ones that people want to buy. And so there's some disconnect. Like I said, there's no there's no app that helps people connect. So
Hmm.
I've been able to kind of get in there as a middleman and work on that, make some money, yes, but also provide a lot of value to the community. Um, like I mentioned recently on Twitter, I'm not a gringo, I'm the gringo. That's what they click, el gringo. So, and that is one cool thing about living in a small town. There's not a, it's not like Medellin or other popular tourist destinations. Um, you can become a part of your community if you work at it, and working at it just means speaking Spanish because people are generally in the rural areas are generally very friendly. They want to
Hmm.
know their neighbors. They're even nosy, but that's I don't think that's unique to here. But
Chismosos.
chismosos, exactly. So
So we'll,
chismoso.
we'll come back to the integration stuff. I just wanted to kind of continue the thought a little bit around numbers in the business because I'm just a cold-hearted American. Um, so the town that you're nearest to, if I had this right, would be Chaparral.
Chaparral is in Tolima, but it's a little further away. We are near El Líbano, which
Uh-huh.
is about 50,000 people, maybe 2 hours north of Ibagué. And actually, from Líbano, I can grab a bus to Manizales, about
Hmm.
3 hours over the mountain. They just fixed that road up. And so I actually prefer to go to Manizales to do any paperwork or,
Oh, really?
visit the
I think it's putting me to
Ministerio.
the wrong one on the map because I'm seeing like I'm seeing like I'm not seeing a 50,000 person town, but like I'm seeing like San Antonio. I guess it doesn't matter, but so El Líbano, Tolima. Um, so let's get back to the price per hectare because I think it's really interesting because there's people don't realize how cheap it can be. You're talking 2 to 10,000. Let's just call it $5,000 for a hectare, which is 2.5 acres. And how large? Like, what's the average purchase size? Is it 5 hectares? Is it 10 acres? And are you trying to get bigger plots, or are you trying to get small plots that are connected and kind of stitch them together?
Yeah. Okay. So the average size I would say is 2 to 3 hectares. So 6 to 8 or 9 acres in that range. Um, and the closer you get to the towns, the smaller they are. The farther away, the bigger they are. And so it really depends. I've identified a few ways to add value. And one of those is stitching together larger farms from smaller properties. One of them is building roads, which I mentioned.
Hmm.
Another one, we had one successful project dividing it up. I'd like to do some more of that. I want to kind of be careful. I don't like the current model. I mean, a lot of Colombians are doing it. They'll buy some piece of property and divide it up into these lots. And these lots are just too tiny, 7 by 13 meters. I hate that. So I'm looking to get a little bit um, maybe more like condos with some space, like a homeowners association, so it'll like manage your plants and your trees for you. I'm looking
Hmm.
to get something a little bit more first world, let's maybe I could say. But I'm looking at different ideas. There was one property I'm working on right now. It actually the people there, they still use mules to get their coffee out. They go down to the river, they go up the other side. They always have problems with transportation, and so I looked at this. I bought this property for right around 2,000 per hectare. We bought 17 hectares. It's got waterfalls on both sides. It's beautiful. And I said I could put in a cable, right? And we could run a cable car here, and we're going to completely transform this situation. So you gotta, to me, the thing is a transformation. Where is the value you can add? The cable is not very expensive unless you're a poor farmer, right? Then it's expensive. I have
A
to think
cable
about,
car?
yeah, like a garucha. I'm not sure exactly. Telesférico. What is the word in
Yeah,
English?
yeah, I know that Teleferico is a cable
Yeah,
car, and you're putting that on your land,
we're gonna. I'm
but
actually
like
looking at.
with like
Yeah.
pillars, and it's in the air, or is it like sliding on the ground?
No, no, right across the valley, right? So the people actually, it's got
Oh,
this
like
big
literally
river.
with with cables in the like suspension in the air.
Yeah, and so I'm looking first. I'd like to buy like a few more farms in the area. I did some math, and so the investment is good, but I'd love to have more land before I do that. So because I really think
Man, yeah, that's a
that's
whole
not.
can of worms. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. Can I
Whole
ask
can of
you,
worms.
Alex? So, um, you mentioned coffee a bit earlier. You've also kind of mentioned doing residential stuff or kind of targeting people from Bogota for like a residential kind of finca, I guess you could say. Or what is the main export or what's the main economic activity going on here? Because I guess you're growing something and then you're selling it to distributors and then it's kind of like sold nationally. Could you kind of explain what the economic activity going on here is?
Yeah, it's a big issue because here it's an agricultural region. So we're talking coffee, cafe, plátano, plantains, and aguacate, avocados. A little bit further up the mountain, they do blue blackberries, and they do a few other things, potatoes. But that's the big thing in this region. And so I got this farm. It's a coffee farm, and I said, well, let's put in some avocados inside the coffee. So that's going good. But also, there's like guava and
Hmm.
these other fruit trees. They call it pan coger. So, like, people will grow a lot of fruits, but they don't really sell them. So, it's so undeveloped. We talked about this first world, second world, and third world. So let me just mention this right now. The first world, this is an original definition. The first world has working infrastructure. The second world referred to the ex Soviet Union countries where they used to have infrastructure. It's still there, but it's like broken. And
Hmm.
then the third world, they don't have the infrastructure yet. And so, those qualifications, we kind of understand that. Third world, I guess, is worse than first world. But when you look at it from an investor standpoint, the second and the third world actually have some benefits because the first world, it's like the things are already in place and either they work for you or they don't. But when there hasn't been infrastructure yet, it's an opportunity to think now with our modern, technology, our modern studies, and there's a lot of stuff going on, like in the regenerative agriculture space, like like with that cable car, like we can think differently, and we don't have to like be locked into the infrastructure that's already there. There is no infrastructure. We can decide how to implement it. So people do monoculture because that's what they understand. And so I am interested in kind of breaking that system. Everything that's sold here, they grow coffee, plantanos, and avocados because that's what people buy. That's what the markets in the town will buy. And
Hmm.
so I could sell flowers, heliconia flowers to Bogota. But what do I need to do that? Okay, I need to figure out how to get the flour from here to Bogota. Okay, so I need a cold truck. And so if I'm going to get a cold truck, I need to produce a certain amount of flowers to fill up the truck. So every thought about what you grow is possible. It's like a whole realm of possibilities, but you have to figure out the whole chain. It's not there
Hmm.
yet. Nobody's done it before. And so there are people growing flowers, just not in this town. So, okay, so maybe I can go visit the town that grows flowers. What can I learn from them? Like this is what I'm talking about. This is a lifestyle of like on the ground investing that I couldn't have even imagined when I was in the United States. Like it's like go get a job, work for somebody else, do what they tell you. But down here it's like it's blown my mind open. Like I can do anything and there's 100 things to do. Which of them do I want to do? Well, let me pick one, try it for a while, see if it works. And so this is how we started with the coffee. Nobody was roasting the coffee. They were all selling it to the Federation. And so we said, well, we're going to roast the coffee. We're going to sell it, in 1 pound packages. And so we started to do that. And
Hmm.
everybody said, that's a great idea. Let's do that too. And so that's been going on. Coffee's been getting popular. The space kind of got saturated. I don't really grow as much coffee anymore. But I do continue to consult with local people. This is a great idea for you. I kind of felt like the space was complicated, and we could do a coffee podcast if you want. Why that's complicated, but I started growing.
Fun fact: I'm actually in a coffee region of Mexico right now, so I'm up in the mountains. It's misty, so it
Nice.
does interest me. Yeah.
So the mountains are the best, just for anybody who wants to travel. The let's say 1,200 meters to 2,000 meters, really anywhere in the tropics. That's where you want to be. You don't need heat. You don't need air conditioning. That's the best
Hmm.
climate. I mean, that's just a rule of thumb for anybody who wants to travel and maybe live somewhere. That is the best altitude to be at. I mean, would you agree, Vance?
Yeah, I'd agree. There's less sun, I would say, which would be the downside, but it still peaks out every day.
True, true. Yeah, right. You gotta get outside when the sun's outside. But you can go now. I imagine Mexico's similar. You can like go down the mountain and go to the sun or go to the beach. You can go sweat if you want. but uh, but yeah, we have here in Colombia we have a bimodal season. So I don't know if in Mexico you get like 6 months of rain and 6 months of sun, but we have 3 months on, 3 months off. So we have a bimodal climate, which I really like.
Hmm.
It doesn't rain too much for me to get like bored with it, and it doesn't, it's not too much summer for me to like, you know, want to go
See,
visit
what elevation are
Wisconsin.
you at?
So right now I'm sitting on what I call my main farm, my investigation, my research center, and we're at 1800. Which
Okay,
again, I'm from a cold climate. I like this. I need cool, cold nights to sleep. I need to have a
I
blanket.
know
I
you
can't
mean.
sleep
I
in
know
the
you
hot.
mean. Right. I
Doesn't
guess
work
for
for me.
reference to anyone listening to this, so Mexico City is 2,200 meters. Guadalajara is about 1,500 meters. Where I am right now is 1,400 meters. So, like you definitely nailed it with the sweet spot, kind of the 1,200 to 2,000.
Yeah, and so look at all those big cities. Like that's why they're at those. I think that's probably why they built those cities there because this is, if you get down to the lowlands here in Colombia, it's even stressful the climate, and you can see there's a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
different
Cartagena, all
culture.
that.
Yeah, there's a whole different culture of people that like work in the early morning and the afternoon and spend all day in their hammock drinking beer, and even in Colombia, like the paisas, they consider those people really lazy. They have a really lazy culture, and the paisa culture in the mountains is a really relatively for Latin American terms hardworking
Yeah,
culture,
entrepreneurial.
entrepreneurial, exactly. And so climate has a lot to do with a lot of this stuff, but I would recommend people, when you say Colombia or Mexico, eh, there's a lot of different places and they're very different.
So Alex is a mountain man. For anyone trying to visualize what he looks like, he has a gigantic beard, gigantic blonde blonde beard, dirty blonde.
Yes. Yes, and I like it. I like growing it out. I shave it. I fix it up about twice a year, but that's enough for me. And I think everybody could pick the lifestyle they want. But I am so happy out here in the mountains. And one thing I wanted to get into. So we get back to land in a second, but I was interested in your opinion, Vance. Somebody who's been doing this for a little bit longer when I meet, there's a certain class of, and I think they call these the passport bros, but there's a certain class of gringo, we'll say, that, I almost am reluctant to invite them to visit me because they're into like partying and getting drunk, and, I want to sleep with a lot of women and like I guess my interest is a little more wholesome. Like I want to invest and be free and help
Hmm.
people develop more than I want to like live a certain lifestyle of debauchery. And so both of those worlds do exist here. Like so I don't know in Mexico, but I know in Costa Rica, here in Colombia, prostitution is legal, for example. So like when somebody reaches out to me and one of their questions is, so yeah, tell me about the prostitutes. I'm like, maybe you want to talk to somebody else. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like if that's your number one interest I'm not interested in that. That there are people that are, that are would
See, I
love
don't even
for
see
you to.
how. If I saw a photo of you with the gigantic beard and all that, I wouldn't be like, "Where are we partying?" I'd be like, "Which wholesome yoga retreat are we doing?
Right, right. Okay. And it's not that I don't enjoy having some beers or some whiskeys, but it's like an attitude about life. Um,
Yeah, you know what I think is it might be a necessary intermediate step where it's very difficult to go straight from the US to a farm in Tolima. Like that's a very difficult decision to make, and there kind of needs to be an intermediate step where you pull up in the big city, you pull up in Bogota or Medellin, and yeah, you're gonna hit the clubs a little bit. You know what I mean? But then once you're in the country, once you kind of see what's going on, you start picking up the language, then you start going, you know what would be cool getting out of the city, you know, getting into the mountains, that kind of thing.
Totally, totally. Right. And I agree with that. There's nothing wrong with going to the city and partying it up, but I want to come home and have my wife make some food. I want to, work on the farm. I want to
Like,
have the
but here,
people,
no one's gonna come from the U.S. and like book on Airbnb a farm in the middle of nowhere where you're gonna need to rent a car to get to. Like, there kind of needs to be, as a digital nomad or expat, for most people, there's gonna have to be an intermediate step. I think where, as a digital nomad, you're kind of like what I see is you start as a digital nomad and you just want to kind of travel the world and do cool stuff and 1 month per city, that kind of thing, and then you go, you know what, pretty much everywhere I've been is better than the US. Let's just pick a place and kind of settle down, um, you know get a long-term lease, maybe get a girlfriend, that kind of thing, and it'll evolve into the direction where you are, Alex, and you've taken it to the, I wouldn't say taking it to the extreme, but you're well developed on that path of, integrating in the community. You probably, what kind of car you got?
I got a 1979 Nissan Patrol. And I love this car. It's got nothing electronic. It's easy to fix. I know the mechanic. It cost me like $1.50 to fix most things. And I get under the car with him. And these cars are easy to fix. They fix them forever down here. It's got the
Oh,
four
this
wheel
thing is
drive.
epic looking. It's like boxy.
Yes,
It
yes.
looks like those old school Land Rovers and stuff, but it's a Nissan.
I bought this car for $2,000, and I keep it fixed up. I've replaced a couple of things. I probably got another maybe a grand into it. And I was looking. I could probably sell it for $6,000 or $7,000 right now.
If you brought this to
Um,
the States, it'd be worth 30.
right, right. And so it's these are the type of things like people don't they don't know, and so maybe
You can
that's
make a
our
whole business doing this,
responsibility.
eh? Drive these things to Cartagena, put them on a container, sell them in the States.
Right, right. And but just
Yeah,
the
this is
joy
classic. This is like the
of
classic like campo car in Colombia, right? Like all the cafeteros got something like this.
That's right. And so this car I've used to build and fix up a lot of the roads that we've been working on. So we, could put in down here. Material is a big issue. So one of the things we do is we take when people fix up their houses, all that broken fire brick and broken up cement. We'll take that and we'll take that material and we'll use that to fix up our roads. So we get a lot of times not well, sometimes people will pay us to take the material, but a lot of times we at least get it for free. And we use that to fix up the road. And so, like, I don't know, it's like a win win thing. I have a lot of fun doing stuff like this where, you kind of really fill in a niche. And I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head. Nobody can come down and do what I do on day one, it's impossible. Um, and I didn't start doing this. I moved to Bogota. I got a job teaching English. I didn't have any money. My Spanish was weak, although I had studied Spanish. But through the immersion process and Bogota, Medellin also really nice because around the cities there's all sorts of these little pueblos, and so, you start heading outside of the city on the weekends or los puentes, the holiday weekends, and you start to get to know and get that Spanish immersion, get out of the gringo only spaces, get out of the expat communities and really test yourself with Spanish. Colombians, in particular, are really generous with the language. If you try, they try. And they're so grateful that you're trying to speak Spanish that they
Mhm.
will teach you for free. You just got to get out
Yep.
there and try. And so I figured it out over time, freelancing, different things, translations, websites. And slowly it took me 4 or 5 years to get this, figured out and buy the first farm. But you don't get to this point without taking that leap of faith. You got to take a
Mhm.
leap of faith, and really, to the people in the U.S. who need $7,000 a month to live, what 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 do you have to lose? Like, give it a try. It's awesome down here.
Do you have kids, by the way?
I have one on the way, and I would like to have 10. We'll see how it goes. Um,
Sounds like Twitter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like the idea of kids. You actually have to, uh, you know, I didn't have any by accident, which I thought would have been cool, but I didn't. So I have to put in some work to make it happen, and so we're
Okay, so
working
your
on it.
lady's expecting.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna make it happen, and I'm doing some research now. I have to like prepare to make sure. One thing I know you mentioned a lot is healthcare. Um, I want to make sure that you get the right healthcare. It The healthcare system here is different than in the United States. So basically, whatever you want to do, you could do. You could just go and pay for it.
Out of
But
pocket, yeah.
if you go into the regular system, they'll tell you what you need to do. So I know there's a lot of stuff about you know the right way to have kids, and so I'm doing some research right
Yeah.
now.
You'll be fine. All right. All right. I just wanted to
Yeah.
get a feel for this your situation. Um, can we please just keep talking about land because it's so interesting to me. Uh, um, okay, so you're buying these farms that are on average 9 acres, 3 hectares, let's say. So you're saying 4 grand to 6 grand per, or 3 to 10. Let's just call it 5, 6 grand per hectare. So you're investing about 15 grand per purchase.
Yeah, I mean averages are kind of misleading, but yeah, yeah, it depends on the project. I
Okay, what's
try to
the
be
upper bounds?
Yeah, okay, let me think here. I did buy recently 3.5 hectares, and it cost me 20. I'm just mental mathing here. The exchange rate about 27,000.
Okay,
Um, so that's pretty close here to the town, which is where I've been focusing my efforts recently. I got this area that I really like. We're still fixing up the road, so the prices are still kind of cheap. But I think it could be like, it could be a barrio of the town in the future.
oh, it's that close. You could make it like a commute, like a, yeah, like a suburban community,
Yeah,
you think?
a little suburb outside of the city, but like
Uh-huh.
right outside of the city. So
Gotcha.
that's kind of where I'm focusing my effort. Maybe now I did buy some cheap ones at some time, but I think right now I'm focusing more on the 6,000 a hectare, let's say. Um,
Higher
and,
quality, closer to stuff.
and it all depends, right? Because there is time. Time has been a challenge for me, and we can get into this. So, like, okay, you buy a farm, it's got coffee on it.
Yep.
What most people will do who've gotten to this point is they will hire a local to manage it.
Yep.
And that has some challenges to it. And we've learned all about this. So um, local people know how to do what local people have been doing, and that's monoculture. And so you'll have a plan, you'll make a plan, and you have to buy so much poison and you have to buy so much fertilizer, and they do the thing. And coffee, coffee produces, and then you got to split the profits with it, and that's if the coffee price is good. Because if the coffee price is low, the administrator might say, hey, I need more, or even I need you to give me some money during the low time. So all of a sudden the people have this farm and they're thinking like, I'm not making any money. This farm is costing me money. It's like a hobby now. And so maybe the land price goes up, but while you have this maintenance cost now because, you're kind of running it and you got to pay the guy. You got to make sure the guy doesn't like steal from you. You got to make sure he's trustworthy. It's not always easy to find a guy if you're not integrated in the community. I know some local people, this is their biggest problem.
Hmm.
One of my neighbors has gone through four different administrators in the last year, and one of the things they say locally is nobody wants to work, and it's like, well, that could be true, but basically the monoculture system is broken. So one of the things we've had success in doing is trying to transform the systems, and we're training our own people. So we try to get uh, people that have some experience in farming, but not a ton, and we train them. And so when we train them, we're teaching them how to do something a little bit different. And we do pay them a little bit more than the average wage, but again, the average wage is so low. And so one of the things that I'm working on right now is actually fence posts. So people here, they cut down trees. There's some eucalyptus crops for fence posts, but mostly they're going into like scrub forests and they're chopping down trees to get fence posts. And there's always a demand for fence posts. So I started cropping fence posts with some native trees. And that has gone really well for us. And people are like, they're getting it. Like, oh yeah, fence posts. I know where to sell those. And so we kind of changed the model. We train our own people, and one of the things I'd like to do is to kind of start a school. And so that'll be the next 10-year plan. But that is really challenging for people when they try to go in this direction. It ends up being a hobby, and maybe if they sell the land, they can recover some profit because land prices have been depressed in Colombia in the countryside, and they are going back up again.
Hmm.
But our goal is to be able to realize profit before you sell. I mean, selling is good and you can flip, but wouldn't it be great if we could manage these better,
Right. Income
employ a whole
producing.
bunch of people, and be producing? So that's kind of our goal.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
As you were kind of saying, like if you just buy a piece of land with some coffee plants on it or whatever, it's kind of tough to get that going if there's not already an infrastructure of a guy and a local distributor or a market or whatever. But it sounds like you're coming in that early. I was almost thinking you'd be buying maybe like existing functional farms off of other people based on like the EBITDA or the net profit type of thing. But you're more getting in at a lower level where is it like raw land? Is there just like maybe one small dingy building for the caretaker on the land, or like you know what I mean? Like how functional do you look at functional farms, or is that too big a scale or too expensive and it's better to go for these sort of semi-developed or undeveloped pieces of land? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense, and that is an important consideration. One of the farms I recently bought had 17,000 coffee plants on it, and so it is something, and so that provides me some income. It is more than the administrator needs, so I've got an administrator there. He's doing the coffee, and he gives me some money back. So to me, that's great. But these earnings, when you calculated out with coffee on a small scale, especially, we're talking like 30-year turnover. It's not like a rental property, it's low. So, like, it's not even very attractive in that sense, to me at least. Um, so the coffee's like, it's nice, but it doesn't, like, if it doesn't have coffee, that does not deter me. So I'm happy.
The yield's not high on
Yeah,
coffee.
and why is that? So I mean, the reason that is because, and so you can look into 30 or 50 hectare farms where they are maybe producing a reasonable standard of living for the owner, um, but that's on a scale, right? On a small scale, the coffee basically is able to pay the guy that works it, right? It's a small scale setup. So for it to pay more than that, right, to give you some back, because you've got to put the guy there to work it, you have to get to a certain 10 or 20,000 coffee plants and well managed. And it's tricky. It's tricky. Again, I mentioned just once dishonesty, but it exists, right? So when you trust somebody to manage money for you, it's really easy for them to show you different numbers, right? Then, so you have to really consider these things. I often like it not to have the coffee because it's less work for us. We can immediately start putting in the firewood crops and the fence post crops that we really like. But
Mhm.
coffee, again, coffee does provide some money, and it's a good crop. I love coffee. I love.
And so
I'm
in
an
addition
addict.
to the yeah, I'm drinking coffee too. Um, the person that you have managing the farm, is that also the recolector? Is that also the person, picking the coffee berries off the tree, or is that different people that come in once every 6 months? Or,
Yeah, right. So picking coffee is a lot of work. It's hand picked here in Colombia, and so what the administrator does is he hires people at that time. It's even to the point where he could uh, theoretically pick all the coffee, but because it all comes in at the same time, it would be falling off before he got to the end. And
mm-hmm.
so he might only need to spend mm, 3 or 4 months out of the year on that farm, right? My administrator has his own farm. He's a neighbor of the farm, and so he
Mm-hmm.
manages his coffee and my coffee. But so it's not his full time job. But when it's a full time job, it's a full time job, and he brings in 5 or 6 people and to
Right,
manage it, to
the
pick it all
harvest.
fast, right? Because when those things start going red, you got to be picking them, or they get sobre maduro, they start falling on the ground.
Yep, overripe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you find coffee to be, a little too intensive or just not worth the money. And so that's why you're kind of moving over to other crops like the firewood trees and so forth.
Let me tell you, really, the original reason I stopped with coffee. We were roasting, we were packaging, we had our own coffee, we were exporting, and they started to the government, I guess you could say, it started this. It seemed like it was getting trickier. They kept changing the rules, and it was getting, well. I think this is like 4 or 5 years ago now. They declared that coffee here in Colombia is patrimonio del Estado. It's
Cultural heritage, basically.
cultural heritage. Yes. So they charge for exporting. They charge $1 a pound, and it goes to the Coffee Federation. $1 a pound for roasted coffee and $6 a pound for unroasted coffee. And at that point, I threw up my hands and I said, you know what? I'm going to grow something that isn't, belong to
So
that doesn't
regulated,
belong to
yeah.
the government. Um, and so that's when I kind of moved more into consulting. I help local people do it. I'm happy to help, put them in contact with anybody I know in the United States, because I wasn't doing it on the scale necessary. It was always kind of a hobby for me. It was always kind of a and coffee for me because I'm into all the different permaculture, environmental things, the polycultures. Um, and since I did that, I've been so much happier because when you get into the realm of government, it just gets tricky. And so there is some sort of independence here. The federal government is far away. We say in la otra cordillera, and the other mountain range is the government, and we're here, and they can say whatever they want, but we're over here. Come and get us. And they don't. They don't. The enforcement doesn't really make it out here. But when you start trying to export, you do have to go through the bureaucracy, the
Hmm.
aduanas, the customs, and all that. And so I started looking into how I could strengthen local markets with some crops, and that has been a load off of my mind. As we scale this up, which I will continue to do, it's my life's work. Obviously, I'll be able to bring in somebody who's an expert in that, or team up with somebody who's already, has that solved. But one of the challenges is, and this is true for any small business, it's hard to become a master at everything. I'm really good at what I do, but now I have to learn another thing. Maybe I could be good at it, but do I have time to be good at it? So that's tricky in whatever you do, but especially I would say with my particular project, investing in farmland. Now I have to be a marketer. Now I have to be a customs agent. Now I have to
Right.
learn about laws. I have to be a lawyer. I don't have time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
I get it. So I guess you probably have learned a lot about how to export coffee. Have you learned about maybe how it works on the US side, like how to get it in the country, pay the tariffs or whatever, sell it in the States?
Yeah, yeah. And so this is where I say that coffee is a really competitive space. I don't know if it's saturated yet, but it is very competitive. In the States, they want the unroasted beans so they can roast it, which also happens to be the highest fee for the Coffee Federation. And locally, the people want to roast it so they can capture more of the value chain. And so that's where the tricky part comes in. Everybody wants to capture as much of that value chain as possible because it's huge. If you look at like the price people sell beans for, dried beans, unroasted, to the Coffee Federation, and you take that down to a cup of coffee in a cafeteria, um, it's enormous the amount of value that is there to be captured. So everybody wants
Right.
to capture as much of it as possible, but there's a volume issue too. So if you get in with a roaster, okay, I'm going to send you unroasted beans. You like what I do? Uh, sure, yeah, fill up a cargo container. And it's like, well, I can't fill up a cargo container. Like, so there's a scale issue, a competitive issue. Coffee is among all the products because we in the tropics we can grow so many things. One of the things I'm getting into right now, I've been experimenting with essential oils, so we can grow all of these medicinal
Mm.
plants, and we can
Eucalyptus oil and stuff.
yes, we got eucalyptus, we got cypress, lemongrass, and so I've been planting a lot of cypress trees in my agroforestry systems because the prunings, I can boil that out and get some cypress oil, and this is an incredible product. Nobody's doing this. Well, not nobody. Somebody's doing it, but it's a really under competed market where maybe my time is better spent. If I've
Makes
got
sense.
100 things I can grow, why should I be worried about coffee, which is like the most saturated market of all of them? Even
So yeah,
avocados,
makes sense.
is growing a lot in Colombia because to compete with the Mexican avocados, but the USA cannot get enough avocados. There's just so much
Right.
demand. Unlike coffee, there is a lot of demand, but it's getting into like specialty niche.
Right. So we
And
can move on from coffee. I do have one final question that I'm very curious about. So is it weighed per kilogram or like per big burlap sack? And how much does the big burlap sack cost or the kilogram cost?
okay, so yes, there is a price per kilo, but also a price for the big burlap sack is an eighth of a ton, and that's called una carga.
Una
And una
carga.
carga is an eighth of a ton, 125 kilos, and that is the amount a mule can carry. La carga, right? So it's two sacks is la carga, and the burlap sack is a half a carga. Okay, so that's 62 and a half kilos. And the local producers, that's what they talk about. They talk about el precio por carga. And so it could be, well, anyways, in Colombian pesos, it could be, a million, a million five, 2 million pesos por carga. And it goes up and down. And you can sell kilos as well. Um, you know,
Okay, so a
18,000 pesos
million
per kilo.
cop to USD is like 250 bucks right now.
Yeah.
So
I think
250 bucks for 185 kilos
Yeah, I think right now it
unroasted.
might be 350. Yeah, it might be 350 unroasted. I think it's 1.4 last I think yesterday I checked. Um
Incredible. And what are you paying per kilo of roasted over there? Here it's like, I think it's like 280 pesos, which is like 15 bucks.
okay, let me think here. Uh I would say spot on about $5 a pound for the good stuff.
Per
You could
pound. But
get
it's not
cheaper
per pound, it's
stuff.
per kilo, right?
Well, okay, so when it's roasted, they package it up, right?
Yeah.
I buy, from the local coffee roaster. I buy coffee from local farmers, and I buy it in a 1 pound presentation, roasted bean coffee. So
Okay.
maybe I could get it a little
Pound for five
cheaper,
bucks.
but I'm supporting my local people.
Yeah. Okay. I think a kilo is like 2.4 pounds. Anyway, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
two. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That sounds basically like what I'm, because
Oh,
that'd be like
there is
12 bucks
something
for
here. A Colombian pound is half a kilo. So that's really 1.1 pounds. They call
500
that
grams.
yeah, 500 grams. I don't know if do they do that in Mexico? They call that a
Yeah, it's
pound.
500 grams or a kilo. We don't call it a pound. Like what? They call it a libra or
Libra, una
something?
libra. They say, well, this is a libra americana is 454 grams,
Okay. Yeah, I think a half kilo here, 500 grams is like 130, 140 pesos, which is like $7 to $9, depending on the exchange rate.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And you think about it. I mean, in the United States,
That's
I
roasted,
was
excellent quality.
right. I was in the United States. I went to Costco, and so this is an example just to put the nail in the coffin of coffee. I went to Costco and they've got this Jaguar coffee from Costa Rica. It's got all the rainforest stamps and it's the best coffee, and it's $5 a pound. And they sell it in 3 pound bags or whatever at Costco. And it's like, okay, this market is so saturated. Everybody in the world wants to sell their coffee, and even some special coffees now are 5, $6 a pound in the United States. So
Jaguar.
yeah,
It makes me laugh.
Jaguar.
It makes me laugh. So true. Like little frog on it.
Yeah, the
Rainforest
rainforest.
certified.
And that is the biggest scam. Man, so we learned so much about coffee. Like that rainforest, I called them up and I'm like, hey man, I'm doing all this cool stuff. I meet all your requirements, ecological requirements. He's like, oh, that's great. Send me $2,500 and I'll give you the stamp. And I'm like, wait, what? I gotta pay? And he's like, yeah. You send this, and every year you pay me $2,500, and I'll give you the stamp. And I'm like, don't you want to like visit me? And he's like, no, I believe you. And it's like it's the biggest
Wow.
scam in the world. It's just pay money, and then you get this little frog on your bag. It's so dumb.
Hey everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co-founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America, and Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information.
That's hilarious. Okay, so I think we've killed my dreams on this episode of becoming a cafetero because it just maybe is not that profitable. It sounds like a lot of work.
Well, it's
Um,
a lot of work and you can do it, but you should, everybody out there, you should be aware. The money's in the roasting. And if you got a cousin that's in the roasting business, maybe a coffee farm is a really good idea. But just be aware that there's a lot of people out there in the coffee space, and there's hundreds and hundreds of different products that we can grow.
mhm.
And if it's less, like on
That's a
the
good point.
internet, your
So,
niche,
so
find a
that
niche.
same land, I was going to ask this. So, sorry to interrupt. I'm doing a bad job today, but I'm just so excited. Um, so that same land that you're assessing to buy, right? Can it basically grow anything? Can you look at the same plot of land and say, this could be coffee, this could be platano, this could be eucalyptus, this could be berries, or maybe berries is different, but like you can take that same plot of land in Colombia in that sweet spot elevation and grow lots of different stuff, right? Or are you looking, or do you have to change the characteristics of what type of farm you're buying?
No, you're exactly right. It's not everything. So, like mangoes need hotter weather, and figs need colder weather. And so there's ranges for all these crops. But yes, I could grow blackberries. I could grow avocados. I can grow bananas. I can grow coffee. I can grow 100 other things. And I just have to decide, what do I want to plant? Almost everybody from the lowlands to the highlands grows corn and beans, and so some of these fast crops, they even plant them in between the coffee rows. And
Mm,
so, like, what perennial do I want to plant? And then I can crop, even intercrop between that, whatever you want. And so one of the things we're working on is these flowers, heliconia flowers.
okay.
Um, these go up to 25 hundred meters, all the way down to 600-700 meters. So the whole range of land that I'm looking at, I could grow these heliconia flowers on. And so it is like what you say. You could pick whatever you want. You don't even have to change much. The only consideration is, once the land gets degraded, almost exclusively throughout Latin America, they will transform it into potrero, pasture, cow pasture. And so degraded land generally gets transformed into just a grass, bracharia grassland. And so if you do
Mm,
buy that, you should check, because it's not always degraded, but a lot of it is. And that's why it's potrero now. You may need to do some things to build back your soil quality and soil fertility, which, again, in the tropics is so fast. It's not like in Wisconsin where you got to like spend years to flipping your compost pile so it degrades. Like, I pile up biomass, and in 3 months it's like black earth again. This is so fast in the tropics.
So safe to say you're all about plants, like you're not getting into what do they call it? Ganaderia and livestock and stuff like that.
Ganaderia, yes. Well, okay. I've done sheep. I've done goats. I've been focusing a lot on steep slopes, but a little further down the mountain, with my wife, we put up a tree nursery, and we're working with the ganaderos to we sell them forage trees, so local trees that fix nitrogen and the cows eat. So we're helping them transform their cow pasture into silvopasture, cercas vivas, living fences, and that sort of stuff. I have my eye on some land down there too. But if there's a saying we say here in Colombia, si haces una cosa, no haces la otra. So I also have to be a little careful not to uh, tap myself out. I can't buy every
Right.
piece of land I see. So I try to be very careful. How much can I really manage? What are the real opportunities? How fast can I make the money back or make a profit, a cash flow on this? Um, like I said, I'm almost to 100 acres, but I'm not rushing to get there. It'll come. It'll come over time. I just, it's so exciting. But there is one thing. I think that tourism, and now this is kind of getting into your neck of the woods here. Tourism has been identified in Colombia as the biggest possible thing of sustainable development. Tourism. And
Hmm.
so I have thought about tourism both ways. I've thought this is silly, and I've thought this is kind of good. and I've been hired before as a simultaneous translator. But my real belief is that tourism can only be an also, right? It can only be and tourism, because if
Right.
if the local community doesn't have a culture, if they're not doing something already, what are the tourists going to come to see?
Unless you buy a waterfall.
Well, that's right. The waterfall speaks for itself. That's for sure. But it's like tourism is good. It's a good also thing. But you have to think. I don't know. I don't know. People are probably going to get into this space. They're talking about tourism, and there is a certain appeal to it. Bring the people in 1 week, 2 weeks, show them around, get them out of here. But I don't know. And then the long term thing, I think there's a lot of space. This is a niche. So people out there who are kind of interested in this, there's a niche down here for people to get involved in participating with the local community, supporting tourism, but also supporting development in other areas, right? Food,
Hmm.
agriculture, but even mining. I mean, there's different things that can be done. And when I talk about mining here, there's gold and silver mining, right? So that's kind of controversial locally, but would it be less controversial if it was artisanal mining? Is it less controversial if local people take that silver and craft it into artisanal goods? To me, that is
Hmm.
sustainable development, right? So I don't know. There's so many different things to do in these niches, and what's cool and what I kind of want to emphasize is local Colombian people appreciate foreigners that come with an idea that they actually want to participate. They want to maybe learn the language, but they want to help them develop, right? They have this idea that the white person means civilization and development. And, okay, don't excoriate me. I learned this from local people. Um, but if you have that mindset, like we're gonna get better together, the people are really appreciative, and they like that idea. They want new ideas. They want you to bring a machine or a technology from the United States or from Europe, so that they can do things better. That they can make
Hmm.
things, more exciting, more possible, more profitable. All of this stuff is a world just opening up.
Incredible. So you're bullish on the essential oils, a couple other things. Um, I wanted to get one thing clear. So are you typically now, I guess, like, 10 years into it, you've learned a lot along the way. Are you looking for things that you can export internationally, or are you looking to basically just sell into the local market and not have to worry about the the aduanas?
Yeah, I recently, or maybe the last 3 4 years, I did make that decision. Like, okay, I'm going to focus on the local markets. Um, and so here's the thing: you need investment to do anything, right? So you're going to invest to do this thing. Okay, so I'm going to invest. I'm going to plant some lemongrass.
Hmm.
Now I'm going to invest in a machine to transform that into essential oils. Okay. Now I have a product, I can sell it and get money. Or I can invest yet again in getting it certified to sell it internationally. So I decided to focus on things I could sell locally. So when we get to that step, it can pay for itself, and we can decide if it's worth it to invest again in getting it exported. I would love to export one day. We did recently. I helped a local entrepreneur. We put up a mushroom lab. So we're growing
Nice.
a few different types of mushrooms, even some of the more exciting types. And we could export that. They're way more expensive, but it costs $6,000-7,000 to get the certifications to certify the lab. So we started selling locally, and that's going really well for us right now. And one day we would like to get those certifications, but I would recommend, I mean, just in my case, my experience is that make sure you can sell it locally first. And locally doesn't
Mm.
necessarily mean to your neighbor. I mean, you can sell in Bogota, you could sell in Medellin. You don't need any certifications for that. But to get it out of the port, To get it to the United States, you do, and they're expensive. And
Hmm.
so we did make that decision. We're focusing on things we could sell locally. And if it makes sense, we can get some certifications and take it to the next level. Part of that is because I don't have a customs expert on my team. So maybe I need that. Maybe one day that'll come into my life. But everybody's got to take the steps. And so for me, it was important to have that intermediary step where there's money coming in, right? You got
Right.
to get to
So
a
be
cash flow
profitable
point.
locally.
Yes, yes.
Hmm. That's fascinating. And so, for someone that's listening to this, what would you recommend? So, maybe they're already in expat mode, they're down with the idea of starting to invest in the local economy. What are some good first steps?
Well, okay, so you're already an expat. First of all, I would say make sure you are getting out of the expat communities. Get yourself known in a community. I find that people approach me about their entrepreneurship, right? They say, "Hey, I got this idea. I've done this thing, but we need some investment." I'm talking like $500. I need $500 to take this to the next level. And so I am at the point where I can qualify different projects for very minimal investments, right? So I would say get integrated into a local community, uh, you know, take down be a little bit humble and start by trying to invest in people that are already trying to do things. Hopefully that is something that connects to you. If you're in a local community and you're doing something, they'll likely search you out. And so try to get involved with your local community. Start small. Start small. There are so many obstacles. Like we've been talking for an hour, but like I could go on and on and on and on about all the lessons I've learned. And how do I learn these things? Through failure, through losing money. And so yes, we've had some success, and it has been more than the failure, but failures are come through losing money. So start small, invest in local people, small amounts. See if you can help them. Do they have a product? What do they need? They need a little machine. Get the machine. The machine backs up the loan, right? You're gonna get some equity or get a loan, but the machine's yours, right? This machine is mine. If it doesn't work out, I'm taking the machine home with me, right? So you got a little collateral there, and then help them. Use your social media presence to try to sell their product
Hmm.
internationally or locally. Try to get involved in a small scale, continue to learn Spanish, continue to learn the culture, and get integrated. That would be my advice. Or team up with other people that have more experience than you, whether they're locals or internationals. Get integrated into a community, and the more you can integrate, the better, because going it alone is the best way to reinvent the wheel and learn all the lessons that we've already learned. You're going to learn them all by yourself and lose money and all that fun stuff that we've all been through.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Don't do it alone. That counts for the investment migration people, for people trying to do residencies yourself instead of just hiring someone for a couple $100. Um, anyway, so Alex, people can invest with you.
Yes, they can. I'm working on. So I just got on Twitter. I'm kind of finding my niche, and I realized, wait, I have a product. I have people investing. We have a Colombian business. We have it all set up. We have stock in our company. It's a fund for sustainable development. Mostly, what we're doing right now is real estate, but I'm interested in expanding it to the other things. Um, I haven't found the best way to integrate this local entrepreneurship yet. So right now it's only real estate, the fund. You can DM me on Twitter at Eco Instant. Reach out to me. I'm still putting together my marketing funnel. I'm putting together, but I got the website on Twitter. You could check it out, see what we've posted. I've got like 6 years of blog, so you can like see what I've been doing. And yeah, reach out to me. I'm still working on getting it to be super Twitter professional and funnels and all that stuff. I'm trying to learn a new. And if you are like a marketing guru and you want to like help me figure it out. Everybody I've found so far wants to charge me $300 for their mastermind group. So I'm just trying to figure it out right now for free. But I do let people invest with me, but I vet you. I don't let anybody invest with me because it's a hassle. So I have
It's
very
good.
few investors. I vet you, so be prepared for that. I'm not
And
like
what would we be investing in? Real estate, like sort of semi-residential, or would it be more farms?
Okay, well, it depends because the fund is actually open ended. It can do right now. We have a nice property where we'd like to build a hotel. We did a raise, and we didn't get enough. We thought to build our own hotel. So what we did is we bought into a hotel that already existed, and we have been using that cash flow to fix it up. We have a buyer, so we're thinking about maybe by around Christmas we're going to sell it. I think we're going to be doubling up our original investment there. We'll probably buy another hotel. It depends. So if somebody wants to come in and invest $100,000 to get that investor visa, probably we would build the hotel we have. If someone wants to come in and invest $1,000,
Mm.
um, that's not like we're going to be able to do anything new with that. So we would consider either investing in a property we already have, or even offering, for example, some investors that are already in, offering them, share buybacks or something like that. It depends on the size of the investment. It depends on the person coming in. It really depends because we have a lot of flexibility with our fund, which is the way we like it.
Mm. Well, Alex, fascinating story. Super inspiring to me. And I think the audience definitely loved this one. You're also very well spoken. You're ready to go. I mean, so I'm really impressed with how you handled the podcast here today, and we thank you so much for your time.
Vance, I had a great time, and maybe when I have a Twitter Spaces, I might want to invite you sometime. Would that be cool?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much, and follow us on Twitter. I will be promoting you and promoting this podcast to all of my followers and some of my other communities that don't use Twitter as much.
Hmm.
But this community of expats, sorry to just take control here, this
Do it,
community
do
of
it.
expats, I really think we need to get together and make sure that we can help people avoid the worst and get the best out of Latin America, because there's a lot of bad stories out there, and that is for me because people just want to learn their lessons all by themselves instead of tapping into the knowledge that we've already gained. So this sort of podcast, thank you, Vance, for doing it. Keep it up, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. So people can get in touch with Alex. Mention My Latin Life, and they'll treat you real nice. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, my guest today was Alex from Eco Instant, ecobankdevelopment.com. Thanks everyone for listening.